So, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to talk a little bit about the month of Teves, especially connect Teves, the name Teves, the name of the month, even though the name of the month originally is not in fact a Hebrew word, but now that it's been accepted since the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, and even before that, it's been accepted as the name of the month of this month. So we'll understand the month of Teves in its relationship to the word as it sounds. Teves sounds like toiv, something that's good, toiv bas, or toiv tough, the toiv, the goodness, and the transformation of goodness of the tough. We'll understand what this means on the month of Teves. Teves is also, like the Zohar says, Teves and Tammuz end up being the most harshest months of the year, which they're not even halfway transformed. Elul and other were completely transformed. Shvat and Av were in between, from Tu B'Shvat, from the 15th day of Shvat and from the 15th day of Av, are good days, appropriate times, auspicious times. Teves and Tammuz, both the coldest month of the year and the hottest month of the year, both represents these parallel two ideas, and they're both connected to Esav, both connected to like something that apparently could be something negative, but of course, like everything negative, could be transformed to something that's powerfully holy. Both Tammuz and Teves are also connected to the eye. Tammuz itself is connected to the eyes in terms of the sense, the body part that's connected to Tammuz is connected to ayin, to the eye. And in Teves, the letter of the month, following the 12 simple letters, so you have Cheshm, Kislev, Teves is Samach, is Nun Samach Ayin, is now we have the idea of ayin. Ayin is the letter ayin. The letter ayin represents 70, and it also literally what it means ayin is the eyes. That it represents the idea of 70, which is representative of the idea of Esav, of ayin, of Esav. Esav begins with an ayin, representing the idea of the 70 nations of the world. The physicality, this is what you see with your eyes. Sight is to see something, is to see it, empirically to see it, physically to see it. So eye is connected to the physicality of things. And this is why Klal Yisrael, also when we, literally the parsha that we're reading this week's parsha, and even today's parsha that we're reading for the Yom Chamishi, talks about that B'shivim Nefesh Yarda V'Sein Mitzrayim, these are the people that came to Mitzrayim, which means that Klal Yisrael enters into the world of Mitzrayim when they're formed as a nation. The first time we can be considered a nation. Are formed as a people of entering into Mitzrayim, to the place of constriction and limitation, the place of the physicality. We also have the idea of Shivim, that we were people of 70. The people that came to Mitzrayim are 70. So 70 is a way Klal Yisrael exists within a place of constriction, within a place of the eyes, the place of Esav, the place of Mitzrayim. So this is the idea of generally one of the ideas that we want to discuss a little bit. So Teves is interesting that the month of Teves begins with a Yom Tov, which is Hanukkah. It continues from the previous month, from the 15th day of Kislev, and continues into Teves. The first 2 or 3 days of Teves, and it fluctuates, which is very unusual because normally Yom Tovim, the holidays fall out specifically in the middle of the month, in Tesvav. Tesvav is really the appropriate time. When the Torah wants to give a description that the month of Nisan is that it's the Chodesh Aviv, that we left Mitzrayim in this particular month. So, which day in the month was chosen is the 15th day, because that represents the fullness of that month, or the center point of the month. So that's why the Yom Tov are very much connected to the lunar calendar. And in the lunar calendar, when the moon is in its complete form. So when the moon is in complete form, that's when we celebrate Yom Tov. This is Pesach. and Sukkot, and the same thing in Shavuos. Shavuos is really a continuation of Pesach, which will be on its full moon. The idea specifically connected to the moon. Hanukkah is the only Yom Tov, besides Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, which is not considered like the Moed and L'Simchas necessarily, not considered particularly as Yom Tov, they're days of judgment, etc. But Hanukkah and Purim, but Purim also has Tezvav, also has the 15th day, has the 14th and 15th, but Hanukkah in specifically is towards the end of the month, of the previous month, moving into the next month. Because Hanukkah is also connected with an elevation, not only when Yisrael's Daimon Levana, Klal Yisrael is connected to the moonlight. And this is why Yaakov is connected to the moon. The Zohar says, and Esav is connected to the sun. That generally the Yom Tovim are connected. The patterns of the Yom Tovim are connected to the moon, and then and Esav is connected more with the sun, like the idea of a solar calendar, not a lunar calendar. Of course, the calendar we have is both a lunar and a solar calendar. The solar calendar is connected more with Esav or with Edom. This is why the solar calendar is the universal calendar of the Western world. It's a solar calendar. The lunar calendar, which is seen, Riyah, connected to the sun, is something that it's observed. The unobservable calendar, which is the lunar calendar, which is waxes and wanes, which means that it's not completely seen throughout the entire year. The pure lunar calendar is by Yishmael. Yishmael follows the pattern of a lunar calendar only a lunar calendar, and Yishmael is connected to Shmiya. Shmiya is connected to hearing. So that's why in Islam it's connected to Shmiya, to lunar, to Yishmael. Therefore, they follow the lunar calendar. Esav is connected to seeing, connected to the sun. Therefore, it follows the solar calendar. And the ultimate calendar is what we have. The calendar we have is the idea of the chibur, the unification between the solar and the lunar calendar. So when we have a Yom Tov like Hanukkah, moving from beginning of Kislev into Teves, where it's moving, it's not on the 15th day of the month in the middle of the lunar calendar, but it's at the end of the calendar, at the end of the month, which is the 25th day of Kislev, moving into the month of Tavis, and it falls out. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah a similar idea, where it's near the equinox, where the sun is the shortest days, which is particularly the time of the Hanukkah story. The Toldos makes a cheshbon, makes a calculation that the night of Hanukkah that they found the jug of oil was the longest, darkest night of the year. That's why it says that they found the jug for one night, and it wouldn't even last anything for the next night, because if it would have been any shorter night, they would have a little bit left for the next night, because even if for 1 minute or 2 minutes. But because they in the Beis Hamikdash they made these jugs of oil that will last for the longest night, the longest winter night, that happened to be the longest winter night that time. So it's particularly connected to that, and that's why the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah that Adam Rishon saw that the sun is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and Adam Chashach Ba'adi said that maybe the sun is going to completely be eclipsed because of the sins that I have done, and then when the days got longer, he celebrated for 8 days. And the Gemara says that became eventually a pagan practice. But the idea of Hanukkah is somehow, especially when we're talking about a little bit the idea of Teves, is to draw down the light of Hanukkah even to the place, even to the real, even to the place of the darkness, Lamat Masar Tavachim, or to really go to the lowest place and to really transform that place. What is this idea? So, in Hanukkah, which Teves begins with Hanukkah. So we say that Teves is connected to good. Teves also Chazal tell us, the Gemara says in Megillah, that it's the month that the Achashverosh married Esther. And Achashverosh is a code name, certainly Hamelech is a code name for Achashverosh Shaloi, their Kanti rights. Achashverosh means the master of the universe. Obviously there's a person Achashverosh, but Achashverosh represents the master of the world. And it's a time when Esther is Klal Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, is the people of Israel. So when there was the month that they got married, it says in the Megillah they got married in the 10th month, which is Teves, because it's a month shaguf nenem and aguf, that the body takes pleasure in the body, which means that it's a time of yichud, a time of unification, physical unification. That's why bas, even in Aramaic, means yichud, means unification. So it's a time of a marriage, or a time of zivug, a time of connection. The beginning of the month starts off with this idea of lighting candles, lighting the menorah, lighting the candles of Hanukkah, and when we're supposed to light the candles, we have permission is only granted to see them, which means that on a deeper level, not only permission granted to see them, but that is actually the work that we have to do, is to look at the candles. And it's brought down in many svarim, many Chassidish svarim, that the idea of looking at the candles is, by looking at the candles, we're transforming our vision. That we're inundated and stimulated by all different types of visuals that we have, with us walking on the street. Whether you choose it or you don't choose it, certainly if you're not choosing it, that they're just forced upon you. And eventually the visuals, whether they're subliminal or they're literal, and conscious, they eventually enter into your subconscious mind, and they inform you. They actually create who you are on a very deep level, on a subconscious level. And the idea of looking at the Hanukkah candles is by looking at the menorah, by looking at the lights of the menorah, they cleanse your perception to allow you to have a higher vision, to allow you to see a correct vision. This is the tikkun of the eyes, which Tavis is the idea of eyes, of ayin. There's the negative type of vision. The negative type of vision is generally, it could be connected even to ayin hara, let's say, like literally negative vision, which will be the tough of Teves, because ayin ra, negative eye is numerically 400, and it's connected to the 400 men that Esav comes with to attack Yaakov. So it says in Svarim, the Chaim Kadosh writes that it has to do with the ayin ra, the negative eye. It's like the jealous eye of Esav. The tough is the jealous the jealous eye, the negativity. And there is that could be one thing. It could be the negative eye of jealousy and negativity, or not even that. It could be the eye of a lev chaymed, a lev roiv, a lev chaymed, that the eye sees and the heart lusts, which means that the eyes, you see something, but your immediate instinctual reaction to what you see is, how could I possess it? How could I own it? You see something nice, I would like it. You see something good, I want it. It's lustful for the eyes, which is always, it's not nechma l'mayla, it's not beautiful for the eyes, which is like an objective seeing. I just see the thing for its beauty, but it's always, what could I get out of it? What could I receive from it? This is the way we have, where our eyes, unfortunately, are a lot of times our eyes, the way we look at the world is. And through looking at the lights of the menorah, through looking at the flames of the menorah, this is transformed. Our light, the way we see things changes, is transformed. So we see things in a different way. So there's a cleansing of our perception of reality, of the way we look at the world, a cleansing of our eyes, of the ayin. This would be the tikkun of this month. So instead of the 400, which is klipa, to tell you of Esav, of the grabbiness, of tenli, of give me, which is like when Esav sees the food of Yaakov has, right away he wants it. And he wants it now, immediately. Kahyoim, like today, because everything's about just immediate gratification. That's the grabbiness of the eyes, when the eyes just looks to take, to receive. And there's a tikkun for the eyes. So let's understand what this tikkun for the eyes are, and how does it work. So this is what's happening during the month of Teves. There's, in the beginning of the month, we're blessed with lighting the menorah. So even though Teves was not completely transformed, like other Chodesh Nisapach Lehem, or like Elul, or like the half of Av or half of Shvat, but Teves starts off with the Yom Tov, and it's such a strong Yom Tov, such a strong holiday, that eventually all the Yom Tovim will become Kishaga B'tir Mayhani. It would be nullified within the great light of the redemptive light. But Hanukkah will survive. Hanukkah Purim will survive, because it's a Hanukkah light is a type of light that goes into a very deep place. So let's try to understand what this is, what this light is. So the Ari writes with regards to the Hanukkah candles, that technically we light for 8 days. That's what we light candles. But the Ari says that the 8 days are also connected to Gimel Sarachim, the 13 attributes of mercy. That when you say Lahalik Ner Hanukkah, it represents Nachal, which is a stream of lights, a stream of energy, a stream of power that's being revealed through the lights of the menorah. And on the 8th day, which is Zois Hanukkah, the last day of Hanukkah, which is Teves, either base Teves or Gimel Teves, which fluctuates, which is also interesting. Is there's a revealing of the from the 8th onwards. That means that there's a revealing of all the 5 final attributes of mercy, and there's a revealing of Gimel Sarachim, the 13 attributes of mercy. And that's how we begin the month of Tavis, of the revealing of this very powerful idea of the 13 attributes of mercy. What are they? What's the idea of 13 attributes of mercy? So the 13 attributes of mercy is very simply is that there's 10 spheres, there's 10 emanations. In the 10 emanations, these are sort of like where the infinite light is revealed in creation through these 10 prisms. So it could be sometimes as chesed, which is kindness, sometimes as gvura, which is restriction, as power, sometimes as humility, sometimes as it appears in different ways. And this is generally the 10. And then there's 3 madregas, 3 levels within Keser. Keser has 3 madregas. And Yod Gimel Sarachim is revealing the highest level of Keser, Radla, the highest level of Keser. So Yod Gimel Sarachim, the 13 attributes of mercy, is like the highest revealing of Keser. What's the highest level of Keser? So there's a part of the Zohar that's called the Idur Rabbah. And in the Idur Rabbah, which is in Parshas Naso, the Rashbi talks about the tikkunim of the Yud Gimel Sarachim, which each of the Talmidim, each of the students are creating another tikkun, another rectification or another revealing of the 13 attributes of mercy. And when it talks about over there, it says like this, that ultimately we have to create a tikkun, that the world, in our state, in the state of exile, we have to create a tikkun for Zor Ampin. The Zor Ampin should be seen by Arach Ampin, which Zor Ampin means small face. That small face should be seen by the larger face. What does this mean? So the Zohar explains in the Idra in a very, very cryptic way. That part of the Zohar is a very, very intense and deep part of the Zohar. Incidentally, this is one of the only parts of the Zohar that we have writings of, and that in the Idra Zutta we have actual writings of the Rizal. And if you're able to see, you can see like many of the teachings of the Rizal can be rooted in the Idra. The Rizal had wrote some notes, some commentary on the Idris. So, like this, there's in the way we experience the presence of Hashem in our lives, is that for most times the way we experience is through the light of Zohar Ampin, which means through the revealing of Zohar Ampin, which is the small face. When there's a revealing of the small face, then in a language, the way Chazal describe this, Rashi brings down the name of the Psikta, Rashi brings down this idea that sometimes Hashem appears to us like a Matan Torah, Kazakim Yeshiv B'Shiva, like an elder sage that's teaching us Torah. Sometimes Kigir Oisam L'chama, like Kiryas Yamsuf, like a mighty warrior. So the relationship, of course Hashem is one, but in our experience of that oneness, we experience it differently. Or like the Zohar would say, the Zohar and the Idra would talk about, this is the way we talk about it in terms of the eyes. So there's eyes, which means it's being shown to us, and we're therefore seeing it. Sometimes it's revealed in the right eye, sometimes it's revealed in the left eye. Or to use another image, what the Zohar also uses, that these eyes are sometimes open and sometimes closed. These are eyes that have eyelids. The Zohar goes into a longer riches about this, great detail about this, about the eyelids and the eyebrows and the beard of the madrigas. That means that there is a revealing of a presence of Hashem in our life. Sometimes we feel that we're being seen. Hashem is standing upon us, and observing us, in the language of the Alter Rebbe and Danya, which means that the sensation of being seen is that we're seeing sometimes as from a loving parent, and all we're feeling is that we're being seen in a place of compassion, and we're experiencing compassion. And that's when our life is really going wonderful, and we feel everything working out in our lives. We feel the Chazdi Hashem. And sometimes, kishem shem v'archim, just like a person should bless on the Tov, a person also has to bless on the opposite. Sometimes a person doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it feels that they're being rejected. I mean, Chas v'sholom, it doesn't literally mean this, but that's the way a person's experiencing. As a person is feeling distance, or even midas haremis, a person's feeling the sense of transcendence in front of the numinous, infinite power of the Creator. So there's a different types of experience, and sometimes you feel one, and sometimes you feel the other. But the Zohar says that there's the madrega of Kesser, the level of Kesser, is less small b'hayatika. There is no left side on in those eyes. There's only one eye. And the way that the Zohar describes it, the way the Idra describes it, is that there's one eye, and this eye is always open. It doesn't have eyelids, it doesn't have eyelashes. It's a completely one-eyed seeing with only compassion. So what is Yigimel Mizrach? What's the 13 attributes of mercy? The 13 attributes of mercy is to reconnect to the eye, the ultimate eye, that sees us from a place of pure compassion. If you look in the story of the creation, the story of the creation itself, so when the Creator creates, the moment the Creator creates, there's already an externalization. There's a bara. There's an externalization from the Creator to creation. There's a manifestation. There's a duality. Once it's duality, the way the Torah describes it is Vayar Hashem, that Hashem is observing, which means Hashem Kaviyachal, the Creator Kaviyachal, as if, is detached from the creation, looking at a separate creation. Right? Creator is looking at creation. You can't look at yourself. You're looking at something that's separate from yourself. So Vayar Elikim, the way the Torah describes Vayar Elikim, because Bereshit Bar Elikim, Hashem created, externalized. So Shemaim has been named Elikim through Midas Adin, the Midas of constriction, into light was constricted. So now there becomes a manifestation of finitude. Now the Creator, Kaviyachol, as if, is observing creation. This is the beginning of the selfhood of the creation, of the creation emerging into self. And what does the Torah describe? How does the Torah describe this event? Is that Vayar Elikim Kitov, Hashem sees because that it was good. Now this can be two deeper ways of understanding it. Vayar Elikim, Hashem sees it Kitov because Hashem is good. So the act of Hashem giving us independence, that we are being observed by the Creator and feeling ourselves separate from that, gives us the ability to have free choice. So Vayar Elikim Kitov, Hashem sees us because Hashem is good, and Tevet the nature of good is to give good, and to give good is to create otherness. So that otherness has free choice. I could explain by many of the Kabbalah, this idea of that the purpose of the creation on some level was so a person should have free choice. Free choice only comes from separation. That's Vayar Elikim Kitov. And on a deeper level, what it means is Vayar Hashem Kitov, Hashem sees the goodness, which means when the Creator first sees creation in its inception, the way existence exists in the state of the first day of creation, certainly in the first day of creation, then eventually it's continued. But in the first day of creation, that's the Or Aganos. The first thing that Hashem sees is the light. Vayar Elikim is Or Kitov. Hashem sees that the light is good. What is that light? That's the hidden light. That's the Or Aganos. That's the Or Toiv. That's the hidden light, which is eventually going to be replicated in your menorah. In your Hanukkah menorah, where you're going to light 36 candles, are going to correspond to the 36 hours that Adam was created in the Or Kitov, which is the original light that was eventually hidden in the 36 tracts of the Gemara. So this in the Torah. So this is the Or Kitov. The Or Kitov is that Hashem sees the light that is good, sees the goodness within creation. Let's understand this in terms of a metaphor in our life to understand what this means. Every person begins life in your mother's womb, which means you begin life as an extension of somebody else. You begin life as an extension of another person, which means you eat what your mother eats, you breathe what your mother breathes on some level. Everything, your whole life, your whole existence is dependent on in the womb. Then at birth, there's a tzimtzum, there's a contraction, and there's after the contraction, there's a release, and there's birth, and you're birthed into selfhood. You're birthed as a separate existence. But when you're birthed into separate existence, first you have the umbilical cord. Okay, so that's cut, but originally you're still part of one. And a child, in its first few days or few while, the child, as a child is developing, they don't yet. We don't. Every child doesn't yet understand where their body ends and the mother's body continues. Everything seems as an extension of self. This idea of a transpersonal state. It's a state before there's any awareness of self as an independent self. And then at some point at a very young age, the child starts noticing that they're a self, that they're a separate self. And the first process of a child noticing that they're an independent self is when they looking at their mother feeding them, seeing their mother seeing them. So they're looking at their mother into their mother's eyes, and the mother's eyes is seeing them as something separate, and then they understand that they're separate from their mother. So the development of self, or the emergence of selfhood, of independent selfhood, emerges in those moments of being seen. And this is why it's beyond important to understand that the way you look at your child, and this is not only for mothers but also for fathers, that especially in the formative years, and of course it includes all of life, but the way you're going to look at your child, sometimes you're having a hard day and you're frustrated and you didn't get sleep and you're tired, and okay, a lot of things are going on in your life, true. But remember, the way you're going to look at your child is the way your child is actually going to begin to think about him or herself, who they are. If they see that you're looking at them with disdain and impatience or lack of focus and unlove, God forbid, what they're going to receive from you seeing them and themselves being seen that way is they're going to be seen as someone that's unloved and doesn't deserve to be focused on and just brings about disdain to other people. That's what they're going to, because they're emerging as a self. And therefore, as they're emerging as themselves, they're emerging from the way they're being seen. And God forbid a person, a person has, let's say, a very harsh childhood and whatever, the mother was traumatized, whatever, and they didn't have that experience, you can always recreate it. A person has to find, this is a side note, a person has to find somebody in their life, a friend, a teacher, a rebbe, or a mashpia, someone in their life that they can connect to, that is able to see them in that, is able to look at them in a pure, compassionate, in their possible way. This is what it speaks about, that Hashem was looking at the world. Hashem was looking at the goodness of the creation. Hashem was seeing the world as it can exist in its perfect toiv state, in its perfection. Or like the Alter Rebbe once said, that when he looks at someone, he sees them as they exist in Adam HaKadmon, the way they exist in the primordial being. Which means when you look at someone, you could look at them as, okay, this guy is a shlemazel, a shlemiel, they're not managing, they're not doing this correctly, and they can't get their act together. Possible, maybe that's part of their story. Or you can look at them for their potential, of who they really are. And if Hashem created them and believed in them, and Hashem looked at them in a way that said that they're worthy of creation, and so there must be something very special about them. There is something very special about them. If you could look at a person at their specialty, at their uniqueness, at the gem of their quality, then that they start believing it. They start believing that that's who they are, and they start acting this way. So this is the beginning of the creation story. Vayar Elokim ki tov. Hashem looked at the world in its pure state. This is the way the world, this is the way the world exists from the place of Yigim and the Serachim, the place of the 13 attributes of mercy. The way the world exists from the place of Yigim and the Serachim, the 13 attributes of mercy, was the place the world exists in its being seen, its in full potential and its goodness. Not seen as how could I take advantage of it, how could I utilize it, how could I own it, how could I possess it. It's looking in a different way. This is what we say that the tikkun of the einayim, the tikkun of the eyes of connected to the eyes, connected to the letter ayin in the month of Teves, which is the idea of, and not looking to be Tavis, to have Tavis is to have the toiv. The toiv not the ayin hara. It's the tikkun of of the tough of the ayin hara, not for jealousy purposes, not to possess, not to own, but to be able to see in its correct form. And this is why, it's a time of aguf nenem aguf, a time for shidduchim, a good time, auspicious time for finding spouses, because now it's a cleansing. You're not looking to find things to possess it, to own it. You're looking to have relationships. This is the oimik of the idea that this is the depth of what's happening here. That we're going from Hanukkah time, from the beginning of the month of Teves, which is connected to Esav, which is connected to eyes, which is connected to the harshness of the physicality, connected to the material world, connected to things that are being seen. But we're doing a tikkun right at the beginning of the month of Tavis, which is through the Hanukkah candles, the lights of Hanukkah, especially in Zos Hanukkah, which is always in the month of Tavis, the last day of Hanukkah, which is always in the month of Tavis, which is a revealing Gimlus Arachmim, which cleanses completely our perception if we tap into this, if we really connect to it, to tap into this idea of this cleansing process of the oir, that the oir kitov, that the light, the goodness of the light cleanses our eyes, that we are able to see the toiv, to see the goodness, and to see the positive qualities within everything. And this is the way we enter into the month of Teves, in a cleansed way, and in a holy way, that we are able to be, we're able to see the world and to be seen. No, stand up, Shlomo, no, you can't do that. And let's go, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine, yeah. In a way that can be